Toss to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of the Patriots Touchback Podcast, Season 2, Episode 26. Well, that was a very interesting game. Bit of housekeeping. Carl's not with us tonight. He's on IR this week, so after 2 weeks away, you get me. So, welcome. With me tonight, Kieran, JD, and DJ. How are we all, peoples?
Good, thank you.
Excellent.
All good.
You can multitask, can you, Kieran, tonight?
Yeah.
Don't want to watch above your head.
Yeah. It's probably
okay.
best I don't watch above my head at the moment, considering what the score is. Let's just not talk about the fact that we can't win at home this year.
Okay.
That's,
we'll get on with why we're here, and we'll just.
Sounds like a similar situation, isn't it?
So
it's a weird one for me because I grew up in an era where Ipswich were rubbish pretty much, and the Patriots were really good. And now Ipswich got in the Premier League and the Patriots suck. But now Ipswich can't win a game in the Premier League. So I was just getting double disappointment on the weekend. So
never mind. Right. The Indianapolis Colts win it at the death. Although the Patriots did have a chance to go and win it themselves. Let's start there. Field goal or Hail Mary, what would be your decision, DJ? If you were head coach, come on, would you have gone with the field goal, which is what Mayo went with, or would you have gone for the Hail Mary?
I think the field goal would have been the better option here. I think May probably didn't have the. I think there was reports that came out saying they didn't think he had the arm length or the arm strength to get down there, and like hats off to Joey. He only missed it by a yard, 2 tops.
2.5, I think he was short.
Yeah. He would have broke the NFL record and would have been the Patriots' longest kick. But yeah, it was just a bit unlucky.
JD?
Yeah, I think the field goal was a smart choice. I think it's probably overlooked how well the offense did to probably get into field goal range or semi into field goal range in 12 seconds. I thought that was really good. I think a Hail Mary is just such a crapshoot, and obviously a 68-yarder is also that. But I think Joey Sly, he's not great under 30 yards, is he? But beyond it, he's pretty good. So I think it was the right decision. I think it was well managed. I think it was egregious of the Colts to kick a touchback. I thought that had me just flabbergasted. And I couldn't believe the commentary team didn't make more of that. Why they didn't kick it short and waste more time, given we don't have a chance to kick off for a touchdown, do we? We haven't done anything close all year. But I thought that was crazy from the Colts. But I think they handled the end of the game reasonably well from an offensive perspective.
Yeah. Kieran, what would have been your choice?
I think it's a tough one because the probability of both is still incredibly low. But I was listening to Doug Kyde's podcast earlier, and he was saying that nobody in NFL history has made a 68-yard field goal. Like the record's 66, is it? I believe. And a lot of the time that's in.
Justin Tucker Justin Tucker at the Lions in last year. It was Justin Tucker inside. It was indoors at the Lions at Ford Field. And I think it was 60, 64, 65, something like that. And it literally just made it over the crossbar.
Yeah.
I thought Matt Prater did it for Broncos, wasn't he? Didn't he break the record?
It was 66.
Yeah.
Brandon Aubrey got a 65 earlier in the season, but Justin Tucker got 66, I think.
All right, okay.
So that's what I mean. Nobody in NFL history has made a kick of that distance. But obviously we have seen successful Hail Marys. So then the probability suggests that it would have been better to go for the Hail Mary because statistically it's more chance of it coming off, even if it is slim. So I probably would have got Drake to just sling the ball. But I think the thing for me is we should never have been in that situation in the first place. Like, we should have hung 40 points on this Colts team. We shouldn't be relying on discussing a 68-yard field goal or a Hail Mary at a game that we should have won comfortably. I think that's the biggest indictment, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I looked, Mayo came out and said, look, it's my decision. I made the choice, and that's fine. That's fair enough. Don't have an issue with it. I think when you consider that Sly's best ever kick is in practice and is 64 yards, to ask him to kick 68 and it turns out he kicked 65 and a half. So it's not like he was nowhere near. But I think Mayo probably looked at it and said, well, have I got more faith in Joey's leg than the wide receivers I've got available to actually catch because it's not Drake's arm that's the issue. You're not making that decision based on the fact that Drake can't get the ball there. It's all to do with whether your receivers can actually come up with the ball at the end of the game.
It's that, and you got to expect maybe might be a tip off or like a backhand, and someone that obviously then it just falls into their arms. I think the weather situation helped Joey a bit in this kick. That's why I think they opted to go there. I think the wind was with Joey.
I think as well the offensive line was probably a factor. That that you're looking at an obvious passing situation. They are going to tee off, and we saw Miami last week. Even with max protected, struggled to pass block, and that's a good Colts defensive line. I think potentially Drake having enough time to get the ball 70 yards downfield. 60 yards downfield would be a problem as well, which may be why they didn't want to risk that.
Yeah. Drake May himself, let's look in the game. Obviously, 25-24. Drake May was 24 for 30, 238 yards, 59 rushing yards himself, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Across the team, we had 422 yards of offense. 200 yards of those were rushing. And when you think that Drake May picked up nearly 60 of them, and we claimed two interceptions off the Colts. So team-wise, we were there. We were fighting. I know that Joey Slime missed a kick at earlier in the game, which you could say, well, they were the points that we lost the game by, but it's not that. There was, we lost it ourselves. 7 penalties for 90 yards. That's how you lose a game, by just concede. A when-used penalty cost us a touchdown. That wiped that off the board. Robinson had 2 penalties at left guard that cost us yardage. So, we hit Colts. We had 4 sacks on the Colts and had 34 minutes of possession. How do we lose this game?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I don't know how, because I thought we did the right things. It was just the defensive side. It was basically who was going to mess up defensively, or who could stop the offense first. But you get those. I think we got out-coached, in this game as well. I think the scheme was pretty much right and pinpoint on what we wanted to do. But I think there was some decision-making in regards to, I thought the Colts' last drive where I think it was the tight end, he kind of like bobbled the ball and it kind of like bounced off the floor and then he kind of like got control of it. I don't know how Mayo or someone did not communicate from above and say, throw that red flag, because we believe it was an incomplete pass. So I don't know if it was because it was in the 2-minute warning they weren't allowed to do it. But yeah, there was just some kind of...
I think that one was pretty close. I think that they ruled it a catch and there's got to be clear evidence to overturn. And I just think, especially, I don't necessarily jump on Mayo too much for that one, because I think that close to the end of the game, when your timeouts are important, do you risk a tough challenge like that? I actually think it was probably quite smart to not challenge it, because it wasn't a huge play. And I probably would have rather had the timeout in my back pocket. And I actually don't think they would have overturned it, because I think it was too close. And it didn't seem clear and obvious to me that was a drop. and it moved, hit the ground. But whether it moved in his hands when it hit the ground, I think is just such a difficult thing to nail down. The referees are very inconsistent with it, so I don't necessarily blame him for not challenging that.
I think where Mayo's going wrong with this, and it might not be a thing maybe attributed to him, is the fact that he's a first-year head coach who's never had to deal with these situations in terms of the game management, in terms of knowing when to throw the challenge flag, when to call timeouts. And I think that's where the accountability has to come from those strategists on the team, like Rothstein, who's up in the booth, to communicate better and make those key decisions in certain situations. Like, I can forgive Gerard Mayo for missing on a few things, because a lot of people are saying, well, every time the camera pans to the sideline, he doesn't look like he's doing anything. And I think a lot of the time he's probably second guessing himself, and that's where you need an experienced person up in the booth, similar to what Belichick had with Ernie Adams, someone who is going to be able to make those key decisions. And ultimately, we've missed on a lot of them this year. Like, if you've got a young coach that's going to make rookie mistakes when it comes to game management, you need an experienced head up there. And we're not getting that. I mean, if this was a 20-year veteran head coach, you'd be expecting him to be a bit more decisive. But I think he just needs a bit more support with that in terms of the management from the booth.
Yeah. I was going to say then, how many times did you look and see Belichick just standing there doing nothing? He had I get that. He had the experience that he knew, he'd had so many years. But there were times when Belichick just stood there and didn't do anything. And, there was that I remember when he and he's on one sideline, threatening to throw the flag, and then the other coach is on the other sideline, not throwing the flag. But there were some unforced errors this game, both on the pitch from the players, and I do think the coaches hold some responsibility. Mayo came out and said that, we're at a franchise here. We're a team where we've kept our timeouts and we've won a Super Bowl, but we've also used our timeouts and won a Super Bowl. So there isn't a right or a wrong way to go about it. And I kind of agree with him, but you've got to listen to other people around you. And, I think there is a lot of stubbornness there. So,
yeah.
How do we feel Alex Van Pelt's game plan was this week? Because I'll give him his credit. I didn't think we had a bad sort of game plan this week. We were effective. We were effective at times, and there were moments when we shone, but there were also moments when you could have asked for a bit more.
I think it was his best game plan of the season. I really do. I think he was really strong. The only critique I'd have of Van Pelt in this game was the second to last offensive possession. I'm not a fan of run pass. Like, I hate that. Such a 2nd and 8 when we have the ball after the Gonzo interception to run the ball, I think is not a smart thing to do at that point. I think that we had 7 minutes left or whatever it was, something like that, when we got the interception. I think to just run the ball straight into the line twice, I think, we're wasting 80 seconds. Like, it's not a huge deal at that point in the game. I thought that wasn't very smart. But outside of that, I thought it was really good. I was really impressed with Gus Bradley runs cover 3 like 50% of the time. They run zone like 80% of the time. He had a lot of mesh, a lot of flood concepts into cover 3 formations that were really nice. The little shovel pass with the play action, the read option with Marcus Jones, where they shovel pass it to Henry. I loved that. Yeah. I thought that was really, really cool that we started seeing the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, sorry.
No, I'm just saying it's the creativity that you could see that it was working and it was different.
Absolutely. I think that's a really cool way of trying to get people involved in the offense and get our best player the ball in like Hunter Henry and Marcus Jones.
Yeah,
I think as a whole, the skill position players played pretty well in this game, and I agree. I think it was much better from Van Pelt. As DJ said, there was a lot more creativity. We saw a wildcat. We saw a few different things which seemed to be working for the most part. But what let the offense down once again was the offensive line. And, we had 6 trips to the red zone, only 2 of which resulted in touchdowns. We had 2 touchdowns taken off the ball because of holding calls. And ultimately, like the way we played, the way the skill position players played in this game, the way Drake May played in this game, we easily could have scored 35 to 40 points in this game. And the line held the offense hostage by those stupid penalties. We could have waxed the Colts in this game, and we should have. But ultimately, those key errors in those key moments once again have let us down, and just got to execute better. I don't think Van Pelt or the skill position players could have done any more. Really, that's just the line, costing us in key moments.
Yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot numerous of times. I think the red zone scenario as well, it doesn't seem to be working at the moment. I don't know if we're not creating those plays that we should be making and creating those field goals into touchdowns. I mean, I think he's trying to spread the ball a bit more now, May, using both tight ends. So I think Hooper and Hunter, they were the top wide receivers, I think, this week, if I'm not mistaken, where they were targeted the most. Plus, you've got I felt Gibson came through quite well this week as well. I think we gave him more reps, gave him more chances on the ball, and I think he did power run some plays that got us those key first downs. So, yeah, I think it's just a bit frustrating, isn't it, when you shoot yourself in the foot multiple times because of these stupid penalties. It's just the offensive line, no discipline. It's just frustrating.
For those watching on YouTube, they'll have noticed an extra face arrive. For those listening on the pod, Joe's joined us. Good evening, sir. Nice of you to join us.
Hello.
How was Nashville? Fresh from the Country Music Awards?
Nashville was phenomenal. What an incredible place. Everyone needs to go there at least once. It was nice to share in the misery watching the game in Nashville, or both the last couple of games in Nashville, in the sports bars on Broadway. It's fair to say that we're not the only ones hurting as Pats fans over here. And yeah, going off of this Sunday's performance again, obviously just joined towards the tail end of there, and again, it's hard to disagree with anything from a offensive perspective.
Well, we touched on while you were missing. We touched on the ending of the game and the field goal over the Hail Mary, and we were pretty much of an entire group. We were pretty much that the field goal was the right decision. Do you agree with that, or do you have a desire for the Hail Mary?
I think just with the way that Drake May have been playing and the way that the receivers are constantly had been getting open, I wouldn't have been opposed to going for it, but we'd have probably got a penalty for holding anyway, so it would have made no difference.
Fair enough. What did you see in we've just touched on the game and what have you. So what did you see in that game that you want to talk about?
I think again, it's just penalties have absolutely cost us yet again against a team that we should have been, in all honesty, should have annihilated. That it shouldn't have even been close. Shouldn't have even been a close game. We should have been out of sight before it even got to that. I mean, just little mistakes again, and I can't even forget how many penalties we had now on the offensive line alone, and it's just getting more and more frustrating that the weeks going on. Obviously, we've got thankfully going into a bye now, but then 4 or 5 games left. It's just
we can't lose this week. Put it that way.
No, exactly. I don't know. Vidarian Lower still find a way to get a holding penalty, probably. It's getting beyond frustrating every week coming on the podcast and be like, we should have won and we were almost there, but this cost us again, or that cost us again, whether it be the offensive line not blocking someone, or the offensive line holding, or the defense just absolutely shitting their pants at times. It's getting beyond frustrating talking about it week in, week out, about the same things that are costing us again and again and again. And I just feel so sorry for Drake May. Like, he's absolutely balled out and he's just not getting the results which he deserves. And on another note as well, I did see today that the rankings came out for the Pro Bowl votes. How the hell is Christian Gonzalez not in the top 10 for cornerbacks? I don't get it.
Oh.
It's a popularity contest, isn't it? It's not.
It is.
Yeah, it's just a voting thing.
You do make a good point there, Joe. It's the same things over and over. It's the same holding penalties on holding, and it's the same errors going both ways on the forwards and backwards on the pitch. Why, guys? Why are we not learning? As you know, I get that Mayo needs to hold his hands up and say that's him, but why, as a franchise, as a team, as an entity, why are we not learning from our mistakes?
I think
bad offensive lineman hold.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the fact
ultimately
that
now every O lineman can get done for a hold. You know, even some of the best O linemen get done for the occasional hold. But those that consistently hold are bad, and that is the matter of the fact. And our O line is bad. Like, there are not NFL caliber players at these positions.
But that's down to coaching, isn't it? Not down to coaching and training.
I agree with Kieran that I think you can coach to a degree. I think this offensive line is just bad. Like the false starts. Why would you false start? Look at Trey Jacobs. He was just constantly false starting against Chop Robinson a week ago because he knows Chop Robinson can beat him to the edge. So he's false starting because he's trying
to get off earlier. Yeah.
You know, Michael Onwenu was bad this week for it. Robinson as well. Why are you holding? Because DeForest Buckner's better than you are. You can't block him. Like, this is what's happening. And like, this is why. And I think Onwenu's playing very poorly for a $19 million a year guard. But I think a lot of that's down to the fact of what's around him. He's left on an island a lot of the time because he's supposed to be the best guy.
I think he's been pulled down to their level, JD. That's the issue he's got around him as well. So
it's a collective. Offensive line's a collective group. Like, we can have a great guard, but he will be dragged down, and it doesn't matter. That's why I keep saying that I'm not that bothered about drafting a left tackle in the first round, because I want free agency to be where we address the O-line and just get 4 average to good guys in free agency and to surround Michael Onwenu and just build a average to above average offensive line. That's all I'm bothered about. Just regress back to the median. That's all I want.
Well, what's the crack with Strange? Is he done now, or?
He's back practicing, isn't he? So he should be back to play at some point.
Is this his third year or fourth? This is third year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Third. Yeah. So he's got one more year under contract next year, and then I assume we won't pick up his 5th year option, and he'll be gone. He's been too injured ultimately.
Andrews, we still don't know what he's going to do.
I can't see him coming back. I really can't. I can't see.
I think he'll come back. I don't think Andrews wants to go out.
I think he wants to go out like this. Yeah.
But I think even if he does, it's 1 year.
Yeah.
He's not a solution.
Do we not have another Andrews that we
Jake Andrews?
Wasn't there like high ceiling for that lad as well? High expectations. I know he's got injured.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah, he was meant to be like the future center after David had gone. You know, he was in theory supposed to be replacing Andrews with Andrews, but you know, he's picked up injuries, and I don't think when he's been fit, he's been
I'm not sure he's even played a game, is he?
He's played. He did play some preseason games, but he's been injured. That's why we had. Is it Ben Brown? We went and got Ben Brown just because we didn't have any depth at centre. So like these questions, these comments.
I mean, going back to what JD's just said about going out on the free agency and getting. I know. I get that. I just don't know who's going to want to come and play for us. Is it because we have to?
Anybody will come for the right amount of money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's all about the loot.
This is what a bad team has to do. Gone are the days where you get the championship discount. Like teams wanted to come here to play with Brady and Belichick and win Super Bowls. We don't have that anymore. We have to do what bad teams do. We've got to pay, and we've got the cap room to do it. It's just up to Robert Kraft has to get his checkbook out, and he has to be willing to overpay for players, because it's not going to get better if he doesn't.
Have we got a list as well? Who's coming up this year?
I'm just grabbing it now.
Just while Nick gets that, we spoke a little bit in the green room about the tackles coming through the draft. We mentioned a little bit on the show last week as well. Like, there is a concern that a lot of these top tackles in the draft class coming up are actually going to move inside the guard. Now, if that's the case, I think you stay well away. You know, if we're going to pick in the top 5, do you really want to take a risk on someone like Will Campbell, who's been great for LSU, but might be a guard at the next level? Or, like as JD said, you could get yourself an absolute premier pass catcher at that position, or another position that could be a blue chip player. The more I watch him, just the more I want Ted McMillan on this team.
We all know about your love for Ted McMillan, Kieran. I knew where this was going. No, I agree. To be honest, I agree. I really do agree.
He's just Mike Evans, but just a bit skinnier.
Yeah,
he'd be my ideal first round pick if we don't get number 1. He would be. Yeah, he'd be my dream.
I'm almost coming onto Nick's boat here. Whilst if we trade it, because there's so many holes to fill here, I reckon we should start looking at doing what Bill used to do, and he used to trading out and getting extra draft capital somewhere down the line. But I understand top 5 is hard to give up.
I missed the pod last week. I did watch, and I'm in full agreement with what everyone said. We have that many holes. First, your first round and your second round draft picks, they are your starters. They are the guys that you need to hit on, nail, and those guys are the ones that you need to rely on and build your team with. You are not going to turn a team around with 2 picks and one or two free agents. You're not going to turn the team around that quick doing that. The only way I can see us doing this is you pick up 2-3 good players in free agency. You overpay them because that's what you're going to have to do, like JD said. And then you decide on who you're drafting based on what you got in free agency. But you are going to have to accept that the only way is backwards. Every team, for the first time since 2001, I think it is, every team has their first round draft pick. Nobody has an extra pick in the first round this year. So, there is scope for teams to give up their first if they want to move around. Only 2 teams have a second round draft pick. That's Chicago who have 40 and 42 at the moment, based on their position at the moment, and Buffalo who have 60 and 61 or 60 and 62. So Buffalo and Chicago are the only 2 teams that have a second rounder. So, there's not a lot of flexibility as to who you can and can't trade with, but the only way you're going to be able to build this team properly is either very, very slowly or by moving back and understanding that maybe in the same way that you said, JD, about just getting a middle of the line, middle of the row offensive line, middle players, and just say, right, okay, let's get back to the middle and move forward from there. I think unless you're going to say, right, well, rather than get 2 A-class picks in your first and second round and build from there, maybe rather than going 2 A's, we pick up an A and 2 B's or even 4, because those B's are still starters. They are still players that are going to move your franchise forward. And I think, we have to really be open to moving back. And I realize I was a move back guy last year, and, I'm quite happy to own that. But that was a lot of the fact that I was concerned that, we couldn't protect Jake May. And sometimes we don't this year. Sometimes he's been left high and dry. So, but it does bring it. This all is part of this conversation that I was reading today. You've got 4 games left. Arizona and Buffalo away, Chargers and Buffalo at home, I think it is. Do we win and build a culture, or do we tank? Where do we go?
Well, to be honest, I don't think you need to tank. I think they're 4 very losable games. Like, I think that's just the reality of the situation. We don't have to try to lose. We probably just will anyway.
Because I thought to myself, how do you build a culture if you're going to get rid of a lot of players at the end of the season that aren't good enough anyway?
Well, this is the thing, like you just said, Nick. You said about with JD's point about bringing in players of free agency, but you said about bringing in a couple of good players. But arguably, you could say that half of this roster could just be dispensed with at the end of the season. So we might need to add 20 players in free agency, going from top end all the way through to your depth. We might need to be really active and fill out an entire squad at this rate if we're going to get rid of a load of players.
Your top 5 free agents are Javon Holland at the Dolphins, T. Higgins at the Bengals, Trey Smith at the Chiefs. He's a guard. Oh, he's a guard. We could have him. Offensive tackle Ronnie Stanley at the Ravens, Chris Godwin at the Bucks, and DJ Reed at the Jets. They are the top 6. The man listed at number 8 out of San Francisco, Dre Greenlaw, I would be very happy to pay him some big money to come. We need a linebacker.
There's going to be some other guys as well. Like Greenlaw will be amazing, but like Azeez Ojulari from the Giants, who's had a good year this year with sacks, like he's going to be available in free agency. Travarius Ward is another corner that we could go after. I like the idea of Javon Holland, but if Peppers is going to continue to play, then we probably don't need that, and we could do with maybe just adding a different safety to the mix with him and Duggar. But there are plenty of players, the top end right through to just serviceable NFL players that we could add to this roster.
The one name I've been looking out for in the draft at linebacker, who I'd love to see, who I think would be good for us, is Deontay Lawson from Alabama. I think he's going to be top level as a linebacker in the NFL, and I think projected, late 2nd, early 3rd round. He's definitely within our reach there. If he's available to begin in the 3rd, and we've got a high enough pick, I'd be very, very disappointed if we didn't go for him. I think he reminds me so much of Fred Warner. Like watching him play and obviously I was at the Iron Bowl the weekend, and he's just unbelievable. He just flies around the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's the situation again. Do we trust Elliot Wolf and Matt Groh, if they're still here, to make the right decisions with the personnel? We're talking about a lot of additions in free agency and nailing a draft class again. Like I just have concerns that they're just going to miss on players. Like you spoke, Nick, about adding an A and a couple of Bs. That is a perfectly good philosophy, but we thought we were pretty good this year with Drake May and Jalen Polk. Now May has been brilliant, but Jalen Polk is having one of the worst rookie seasons by a wide receiver that we've ever seen. So, and he's not contributing to the team. So they've got to get these decisions right. Ultimately, you just got to get good players on your team. I would just go hell for leather in free agency and not rely on the draft to be providing too many starting players. Like if we can get an elite starter in the top of the 1st round and then another starter in round 2, and then maybe a rotational player round 3, I think we've done really well. But we can't be relying on this year like we've got Layden Robinson starting and Marcellus Dials taking snaps on D. Like we've got to be getting as good a players on this team as possible.
I think that's why I want to see them address the offensive line in free agency, because I want that. I don't want Kieran makes a really good point. I don't want that to come. That's so important that I don't want it to come down to the draft. I don't want the right player to fall to us or a player to potentially not work out. I would like 4 guys next to Mike Onwenu that I know can play at the NFL level. And even if they're not elite players, they're decent NFL starters that can do the job and keep Drake off his back. Because he is making a very poor offensive line at times look serviceable.
Very good.
The pressure rate has dropped significantly since Jacoby
did this in Carolina.
Mm-hmm. So I think he can make an offensive line look better than it is. They don't have to be great. Let's go and shore up the offensive line. And I actually think I would like to stay in the top 10 in the draft, even if it means training down a little bit, just because I think this team is in desperate need of blue chip talent. realistically, we've got Drake May, Gonzo, maybe Barmore if he's still the same player after his health concerns. Who else is a top end player at their position? I wouldn't really argue anybody.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree with JD. I wouldn't want to drop out of the top 10 just because of the talent that's there. But I do think if we've got a top, let's say top 3 pick, I think there's going to be a lot of quarterback hungry teams who are going to want to get up there to try and nab someone. And I think that could work to our advantage. But again, I wouldn't like to see us drop ideally below 6 or 7, really.
But this is the thing as well. Like, I agree with you, Joe. But then if we end up picking, say, 5th, I'm not sure who's coming up. Because this is a very polarizing QB group. It seems like Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are probably going to go in the top 5, but I'm not sure that anyone else is going to be anywhere near it. So
they are the only two. They're the only 2 QBs that will be picked that should be picked in the first round. They're the only 2 grades with first round the QBs with first round grades. Now I understand with the QB position, some will be pushed up, but. I can't see anybody other than those 2 getting picked in the top 10. Certainly, I mean, even for me, Sanders is probably the better of the 2, and he's worse than Bo Nix, who was picked last year. So you're talking about the best two quarterbacks coming out this year are worse than the fifth quarterback to be taken last year. So and I kind of think there's probably a couple of teams that are hoping that maybe Archie Manning declares next year, and you just put it off one more year and then go for Manning. But I think I'm quite interested. I'm just going to bring that back because I know we all referenced it then. JD, you said about picking 4 middle of the road guys to get us back to the middle. So if you got your wish and you got your tackles and your guards in the free agency, where are you going because ultimately where you go in the draft depends on what you do get in free agency. So it's no good any of us saying, let's get this in the draft, because it all depends on. But okay, so in your scenario, you've gone and got your four offensive linemen to join Owenu. Where are you going in the draft?
I'm a big believer in the draft in prioritize, especially early in the first round, prioritize the key positions. So there's kind of the 5, isn't the quarterback, receiver, corner, pass rusher, offensive tackle. If we've shored up the offensive line in free agency, I'm happy with that. I would then still be happy potentially taking someone like Campbell if he's there and have him develop or even beat out the offensive line we've got. Pass rusher, we absolutely need. Second corner, I'd take behind Gonzalez. Absolutely, I'd be very happy with that. Or a receiver, I think we're in desperate need of if we can't get one in free agency. So I would be happy with any of those. I think for me, the reason I want to address and fill as many holes in free agency as possible is I think generally bad teams draft for need. I would like to be in a position to just draft who we think is the best player left on the board. And that's how I think good teams do it. It's almost the only silver lining of having so many holes in our roster is that we're probably going to fill a need just by drafting the best player, because we pretty much need everything bar a quarterback. So I'd be happy with anything outside of that, really.
I think another positive thing going into free agency, I think a lot of players are going to want to come and play with Drake May from an offensive perspective. I think if you'd have looked at the beginning of this year without Drake May being there and say he sat the year and it was Jacoby who played all year and we were going in with the same record and we're going into free agency and you're T. Higgins or Chris Godwin, are you going to want to come to New England and play with an untested QB? Or do you want to come and play with, all right, yeah, the O-line's not great, but again, we'll see where we go with that. Do you want to come play with a young and hungry QB who's proven already that he can play at the level that's required with the absolute shit that's around him? Yeah, I think it's a genuine thing to look at.
I think what we've spoken about in the past as well is a sneaky factor is that with so much cap room, so we can be ultra aggressive, like genuinely. Like, who is to say that we talk about the offensive line, we can go and get 3 NFL caliber starters. It doesn't matter which ones. Like, If it's for me, I'd go Cam Robinson, Jedrick Wills as the bookends. I think that's more than achievable. Now, who's to say we can't get 3 starting caliber offensive linemen, sign T. Higgins, and still draft someone like T-Mac, or if Travis Hunter falls to us, or Luther Burden, or whoever. And then you've got your offensive line. You've got Higgins on one side. You've got a first-round receiver on the other side with Pop Douglas in the slot and Hunter Henry at tight end. Suddenly, this offense is looking pretty tasty. So I would just be ultra aggressive and just try and get as many top-quality players as possible in free agency and do what JD said so that you just draft the best player available in the draft.
We're in the position where we're going to have to overpay. Well, we're going to have to overpay.
We will have to.
It's just a realistic reality of where we are.
I don't like any of the defensive ends coming out of free agency. So, if taking JD's scenario for thing, if you are looking at that, then you're talking about Nick Scotton at Texas A&M or Abdul Carter at Penn State. They're the two sort of probably the best 2 edges to come off. But edge is quite a deep position. There's some good edges to be found later on in the first and into the second. So it's one of those drafts where there are deep positions, good players, but not in the prime positions, if you like. So if you can get your prime positions covered before you get into the draft, you've got a chance of getting some good players deep on.
I think edge is definitely a need, but I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the type of edge we need is probably a stand-up edge. Someone who can line up as a wide 9. Because we have hand in the ground, typical traditional defensive ends on the roster already. We have Keon White, Dietrich Wise, and Yannick Ngakoue. I don't know, obviously, what the situation is going forward for them, but we probably need. Judon played a lot of stand-up. Uche played a lot of stand-up. That's why I would go after Ojulari at the Giants. He's a typical stand-up outside edge rusher, and I feel that's what we need. You said about the defensive ends in the free agency. Yes, you get Chase Young, but he's a hand-in-the-ground player, really. So if we're going to address the edge position, I'd like to see a couple of outside, stand-up edge rushers that are explosive and not just hand-in-the-ground grinders, like someone like Keon White that wins with a bull rush. I want to see people win with speed and with their hands and with their technique rather than just trying to bull rush a tackle.
Riddick, maybe.
I wouldn't touch Riddick with a barge pole. The bloke's a mercenary.
I think he's decent.
Just a question as well while we're on it. I actually think that running back is a sneaky need here. I genuinely do. Ramondre Stevenson is fine, but the more I watch the Lions with what they're now calling the Sonic and Knuckles combination of Montgomery and Gibbs, imagine Stevenson can play the Knuckles role, but we need a Sonic in the team. We need an explosive, elusive running back that can make guys miss and make plays in the open field. That, for me, would be a position that I would look at early on in the draft.
Excuse me, sir. I've got one. Cam Scatbo, Arizona State. Badly gives me Derrick Henry. Gives me Derrick Henry vibes. He's not as big as Derrick Henry, and he's not as monstrous, but he does give me Derrick Henry vibes. I'll go with Cam Scatbo if you want someone big. But then again, if you want someone like
the podcast last week,
who's that geezer from Boise State? Is it?
Ashton Gentry.
I mean, he's going in the top. He's going top 10, 15. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
you've got the kid at Iowa as well, Johnson.
I've got a little thing for Dylan Sampson as well at Tennessee. He's not gonna tear up. He's not gonna tear up anything, but he's one of those sleepers. He's one of those players that you will probably be able to get sort of like 5th, 6th round. And he will add something to your team. There's quite a few sleepers that I'm falling in love with that I'm like, I'd take him there. So I don't know. We'll see how we go.
For me, like Ollie Gordon,
building-
like has slipped down the board a lot, and
Gordon's, yeah,
he's
he's
still
not
like a
as
third round grade at the
explosive
moment.
anymore.
I would, if he's there in the third round, I'm all over that, 100%.
He was first round in that beginning of the season. He's dropped.
Didn't he have some issues there with the law and stuff? I think.
Oh, don't know what.
I think he got.
I don't think he shot the sheriff.
Yeah, he's been doing a couple of times for drink driving, hasn't he? I think. And
I nearly got shot by the sheriff in Nashville, but that's a different story.
So, has anyone got anything else to add?
I just want to build off the running back talk. I am starting to become very concerned about Ramondre Stevenson. I'm really worried he just does not fit in this scheme. He is so indecisive. He just does not break tackles at the minute, whether it's a slump. I was looking at something the other day that before going into the Miami game, he had 34 broken tackles in the season, and 17 of them came in 2 games, and he hasn't broken more than 3 tackles in every other game. Like he's just not breaking tackles. He's not hitting the right lanes. He's missing cutback lanes.
Fumble issues as well.
Well, yeah, and 6 fumbles is. I know he recovered his own fumble, but that doesn't negate the fact. That's the result, not the process. Like he doesn't negate the fact he fumbled, and I think Antonio Gibson had 7 missed tackles forced on 7 carries. Like he looks so much far and away the better running back in this system. And I am concerned that Ramondre is just not fitting the outside zone system that we're running at all. And given
so, is that direction? Is that coaching? Is that direction? Is that player desire? What?
I don't know. It looks to me like watching the film when you can see the ultimate. He looks indecisive. Like this outside zone scheme that we like running, that's very kind of Shanahan West Coast-esque. It relies on, like Zeke thrived in it because McCarthy runs it in Dallas. Like it relies on one cut and going, and that's what you're seeing Antonio Gibson do really well. He's essentially with an outside zone is you have 3 options. It's designed to build in either you squeeze through the gap that the tackle and the guard are creating, you bounce it to the outside if they've walled it off, or you hit the cutback lane. And essentially that's the whole system. You hand it to the running back, he has 3 lanes and he picks the right one. And he's just not consistently picking the right one. And that's why I think you're seeing him getting hit in the backfield. And the run blocking is not great. Like that is absolutely not the case at all. But he is not the 32-yard run that he had. He got what was blocked. And he does that and he gets what's there. He just doesn't get any more. If you look at the touchdown run that Gibson had, that had no business being a touchdown at all. When you watch that from the all-22 from the behind angle, that looks like it should be crushing the backfield. And he bounces in between and pinballs and hits the right lane and barrels his way to the end zone. Ramondre is just he's not breaking tackles. It frustrates me the amount of times he's open on a passing route in the flat or on an outside run and he's brought down by a defensive back. And the way he was running at the start of the season and in previous seasons, Ramondre shouldn't have been brought down by corners. Like that's not his game at all. And it's, I'm just concerned by what he's facing and why I thought he would have improved with Drake in the lineup because it would mean teams are playing zone more. You're seeing teams can just play zone against us because every time the Colts played man at the weekend, Drake just burnt them. His long run that he had, touchdown that he threw to Hooper, all came against man coverage. He's great against man. So teams are sitting in zone, which should mean that we're better at running the ball, and we're just not doing that with Ramondre on the field.
Yeah, time to look for a new running back to add to the room, I think. I'm not saying cut Ramondre or anything like that, but certainly to add another running back with a bit of dynamism and explosiveness to the room next year would be massive. I've got some points I want to bring up, just 2 quick ones before the main point at the end. Firstly, fair play to Alex Austin, came in and did well for like his first game in a long time. I know he had the PI call, but overall he was pretty good. Austin Hooper needs to be re-signed. I think there's sort of really stout season as tight end 2. So the 1-year contract will be a cheap deal. I think he's been really underrated this year. So I would like to keep him about. I think he's been one of Elliott Wolf's only hits at free agency, to be honest. So I would like to see Hooper stay. And then just like onto the final point, which was the final drive of the game for the Colts. 19 plays that was. 3 fourth down conversions. Like, what are we playing at defensively? Like, how many more chances do you want to get off the field? Like, I know they're undermanned, but I think questions have got to be asked about how you don't stop a 19-play drive against a team like that when Richardson only completed 50% of his passes. Like, it's worrying.
I think there'll be some big questions, I think, at the end of the season, because I think someone is going to have to not so much take the blame, but be the ball guy. And I've got a feeling out of the three, it'll be DeMarcus Covington over anyone, because the defense has regressed so much. We don't have a bad defense, I don't think. I don't think we're elite, but by no means we're as bad as we've shown at times. And I think his head could be on the chopping block. I thought at one point of the season it could be AVP. I think he started to turn it around with his play calling. But the defense has a lot of questions still to answer for me. From a wider
I thought Peppers did okay coming back. I mean, considering the amount of time he was out, and kind of adjusted pretty well.
He defended the run really well.
Again, it's a player that we kind of need at the moment.
Yeah, Peppers is one of our best players. Obviously, we don't know the full extent of what's going on with him, but for him to come back after his personal situation and play as well as he did, he's a good player. And I hope everything's okay and that everything gets resolved and he can continue to play, because he's such an important player for us, such an important leader for us. But if he's to go in the summer, we 100% need to add to that safety position, because we definitely missed him when he was out. But yeah, we've been undermanned on defense all season. I think it's so hard to judge. I've said this for a while. It's so hard to judge this coaching staff, knowing how they've had to deal with the depleted roster all season. I do think if anyone is going to take the brunt of it, I think Joe's right. It probably will be Covington, but it might just be a case of needing to add some more senior coaches to the coaching staff, or he keeps the title, but Mayo runs the defense. I don't think they're going to be really hasty to make decisions like that. Like, in terms of the coaching staff, they're all so young. Like, AVP's probably saved himself. Springer's done a good job. Like, I just don't see that many changes. But it's like, for me, like, if someone's going to get fired, like, it's Elliot Wolf for me. But like, if he might redeem himself this off season, but
I think if
pick up the backing shot, let's be honest.
I think if any coaching wise, if anybody's going to go, I think it's probably Covington, because I think the way it's structured, I think probably one of the first issues was, and Kieran's alluded to it there, was having three primary coaches, your head coach, OC, and DC, all been first year, play callers and their respective positions. I think thinking about when the Rams hired Sean McVay, and they paired him and let him run the offense, and they paired him with Wade Phillips, a really experienced defensive coordinator who had been there. They tried to do the same with Mike McDaniel, with Vic Fangio and things like that, where you've got an older head in the room who can go and be the head coach of the defense, and Rob Mayo can kind of, because if you're hiring Rob Mayo, he's not a schematic advantage. He's not Mike McDaniel, Sean McVay, Mike McDonald in Seattle. Like, he's a culture head coach. He's a CEO head coach. And you have to give him time to build that if you want to. I think we can't fire AVP. I'd be very frustrated if we did, because I think he's done a great job with Drake so far. And I do not want, is what we spoke about last week, is what bad teams do, is you take a rookie QB that shows promise and you make them learn a whole new system every year. We did it to Mac Jones. I don't want that to happen again. And I think there'll probably be a point where AVP, maybe Drake outgrows his system. We want something more innovative, or maybe AVP goes somewhere else because he's done well with Drake and he gets a head coaching gig somewhere. But I think Covington is probably the only one that I would say I wouldn't be annoyed if we got rid of, because I just think the D has been poor, and I think we need somebody with a bit more experience in the room, I think.
And I think a lot of the time
see Vrabel coming.
No,
not
defensively. No.
He'll have his eyes on the head coaching job, but I feel like
one of the main free agent coaches available, isn't he? So I'd be
I
very
feel like there are a lot of Patriots fans. If you look online, if you listen to other podcasts, there is a lot of frustration around, and rightly so. But I think a lot of people are expecting firings. And all I would say is to anyone watching this, I don't get your hopes up. I just don't think there's going to be many. Like, I don't think Robert Kraft is going to clean house after one season, unless we lose like 4 games in a row by 70 points in the next 4 weeks. I just don't I just don't see it. He picked Mayo. He's going to be staying. I don't think Mayo's going to want to fire any of his coordinators. You might see a few position coach changes. I don't know, but I genuinely don't think there's going to be the cleaning house that some of the fans are demanding and expecting at the moment. So I just say to temper expectations. Like I think they're going to give these guys another year. If it's another shit fest next year and they've invested a lot in free agency and the draft and we're still bad, then I think that's when you'll see a lot of wholesale changes. But for those fans clamoring for Ben Johnson, as much as I'm sure we'd all love to see what he could do with Drake May, I just don't think it's going to happen.
No,
I don't think sacking Gerard Mayo is the answer. I don't think. I think you can tell at times a lot this year that Gerard Mayo is a rookie head coach. I think that's evident. I don't think sacking Gerard Mayo solves anything in the bigger picture, but I do believe you can change it around. Like we say, he's very much a culture guy. I believe we need, like you say, if Covington goes, you need the only realistic option you need to look at for me is an experienced DC, someone who's been in the league, someone who's been there and done it, who can come in and
Robert Salah, maybe.
Pretty much be the head coach of the defense.
That's what Salah was a good shout.
Yeah, but I think Kieran made a good point with the roster. Like the roster's not in a good position. Belichick had a similar roster last year, minus Drake May, really, that was less injured than this roster is. We only won 4 games with the guy who we all consider to be the best head coach of all time. So to expect Gerard Mayo to do much more than he's done with this roster, I don't think is particularly realistic.
No, I ultimately, I don't sit here and blame everything. I don't put everything at the feet of Mayo. You can tell he's a rookie coach. A rookie coach will make mistakes. Even Sean McVay made his mistakes. You can see Shanahan makes the occasional mistake too, and he's you look back to the Super Bowl when Shanahan was at the Falcons as a coordinator. He pushed rather than keep running the ball. He pushed for that throw that Hightower intercepted. And that got us pushing on the front foot and got us up the other end for another touchdown. So, I think every rookie head coach and every rookie coordinator makes mistakes. I think you have to, from a coach's point of view, you have to learn from your mistakes. If you keep making the same mistake over and over again, and you do not learn from them, that's poor coaching. You're not going to last. But if you make a mistake and you learn from it, and you can see that you learn from it, that's how you evolve. That's how you become a better coach. So I'm all for Mayo making mistakes. I don't mind him making a mistake, providing he learns from it. We talk about, the way that he's made this, take the field goal example. He's made that decision. He's based it on whatever he feels is right. Now, he may think, yeah, I'm happy with that. He makes the same decision again, and it goes his way. Fair enough. He'll learn from his timeouts. He'll learn when's best to use his timeouts and when not to use them. That comes with time. Bill Belichick didn't know everything on day one. It comes from all those years of experience. I'm sure Gerard Mayo has sat there in the past few years learning stuff, learning what to do in this scenario, what to do in that scenario. But he hasn't faced every single scenario he's going to face as a head coach. And that is part and parcel of how he evolves and becomes better.
I think what we can what we can hope for as a best case scenario is that it follows a similar trend to what Dan Campbell's done with the Lions. Is, in his first season, they barely won any games. But he tried to build a culture, and Brad Holmes did remarkably well to build that roster around what they already had. They had some pieces there already. Yes, okay, they hit on like Amon-Ra St. Brown in round 4 and other players in different drafts, but they nailed their draft classes. They added one in free agency. They implemented the culture, and they had a good QB to facilitate what they're trying to do. Had a good O-line already, and suddenly everything has now come together with a great head coach and general manager, and they're flying and could win the Super Bowl this year. So That's what we got to hope for, is that Mayo is trying to instill the culture, and that it's now down to the front office to surround the team with talent to then hopefully improve the team significantly in the future, so that in 2-3 years' time, now we're using the same timeline as Dan Campbell, we can now see progression where we're hopefully contender again. But that's where the pressure and the buck lies with the front office, because Brad Holmes, outstanding job with Detroit. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about Joe Douglas being unfairly fired by the Jets. I would love to have that guy in our front office. Like, the guy's track record of acquiring and evaluating talent is phenomenal. Like, I'm so reluctant about Wolf and Grow, about what they've done. But this off season is massive, and if they piss it up again, then we ain't going to progress anytime soon.
We have made one roster move this week. The Patriots have waived Michael Jordan, and that was to make room for Lester Cotton, the guard from off Miami's waivers. Out of Alabama in 2019 as a free agent. He joined the Raiders, and then he moved on to the Dolphins. He's played 42 games with 9 starts. He's a guard. I can't see him tearing up trees, but maybe he's better than a man that used to play basketball a long time ago.
The Michael Jordan situation is really weird. Like, he started pretty much every game this season, got released for Lester Cotton, then got re-signed to the practice squad, but then was elevated for the final time, so has now had to be cut again for a defensive end out of Harvard. So, like, he's kind of played for the team, left the team, come back, and then gone again, all in the same week. So it's very, very strange. But yeah, it's just like for like with these linemen that Wolf is bringing in. They're all much of a likeness. None of them are NFL caliber. And at this stage of the season, is Lester Cotton going to come in and play at a Pro Bowl level? No. Like, he's probably not even going to play, like, because they seem to like Layden Robinson at guard at the moment. So this seems like a bit of a tit for tat kind of situation.
Indeed. Anything else to add from anybody?
Thank God it's the bye week.
Normally I have a quiz ready for bye week, but I'm so busy I haven't got one. So we'll sort something out in this.
Need a vegetarian low special on over or under flags for the.
A Vidarian low quiz. Is he an idiot? Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Everyone wins. Right. Thank you, gents, for joining me. Have a tremendous week. Thank you to everybody who's listened and watched. Smash the like button, subscribe, and let's try and move forwards. I'm not gonna say we're gonna move forwards in great strides, but maybe, little steps, baby steps. Let's see. So everybody have a good week, and we at the podcast will see you again next week.